that when you're not careful about something, then in the end you're going to be put in circumstances. So I finally thought I was leaving on time, and then it was how long when I went? 20 minutes ago.
What?
The backup.
The backup.
Did you see?
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
know. I can look it up.
Okay, so I have to leave even earlier. I said, okay, I'm going to try to come early next week. Not on time. Okay, let's. But no, there's no shear, next week.
Or the week after.
But I was asked to announce
Yeah.
that because I'll be in Chutz La'aretz for a wedding, Baruch Hashem, for a wedding, 2 weddings actually, 2 weddings. Yes, and to Be'ezrat Hashem, spread some Torah, teach Torah to Bnei Chutz La'aretz. Any strong messages that you think they should hear, let me know. Yeah, and yes, so
the 17th there's no class, and the 24th.
And the 24th, but then Be'ezrat Hashem from then on for a while.
You know, I also have here
December 15th.
The 15th.
Right, December. That's it. And however, they asked the Matan, I'll be recording a shir. I'll be recording shir. After the shir, basically, there will be a recording sent out on Sunday next week. Jardina asked that there be a recording. So for this year. So there will be, you're not missing a class, it just won't be a live class. So you
We're missing one instead of 2, or you're doing both.
exactly, yeah, I'm just thinking for a second. Right, I'm missing one, right, I'm missing one. Exactly, only one, right, I think only one recorded, otherwise it's, right, you agree?
That's the whole reason that we had you come.
Exactly. And then, for example, even when there is the Matan semester break, so we don't have break, meaning that's when, and before Pesach, we're gonna make up, so there's still, exactly, I hope that's okay. Okay, so let's continue with where we left off, with the story of Shaul going home, which was disappointing because he has chil.
Yeah, we've all failed.
Oh,
300,000
really?
men.
Oh, okay, this is exciting. Okay. It's okay, because I said, oh, they're all gonna come with this,
And we got up
then.
to Yud Aleph Bet. We did
Kol
Shaul
Kol
going
HaKavod,
home,
Nachon,
we did
Shaul
all the
went-
discussion, all the message coming.
Mwah.
People of Yabesh Gilad, we did all
Amazing.
of that.
No more review. He went home. And what happened to the Chayil? So let's take a look at where we left off. Again, on your source materials as well. This is on the 3rd page. And with regard to his going now and fighting on behalf of the people of Yabesh Gilad. So just in terms of, again, if you remember trying to see the parallels between Pilegesh Begeva and the story, it's so clear that that's a story that we have to revisit in order to properly appreciate what's in fact going on within the chapter, which not only helps us understand a little bit of the lineage of Shaul, meaning from Shevet Binyamin, and how significant this is, but obviously the affiliation with Yabesh Gilad, and to a certain degree, revisiting the story in order for us to appreciate some level of tikkun, right? That basically Shaul HaMelech, and therefore with all our negativity of Shaul HaMelech, what was he able to accomplish that we haven't seen accomplished yet from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun? Achdut, that's exactly it. And don't think that, okay, it was certainly Shmuel Hanavi who set the scene, if you remember, by going around and literally unifying Am Yisrael, which for the first time gives us a sense through the expression of desire for a king, but it's even more than that. Shaul actually accomplishes it, right? It's not David. Sorry?
Is this uploaded anywhere? Last time I took pictures of it.
It should be on the Wednesday. Yes, they have the e-version. Thank you. So in fact, what we see is that Shaul, through fixing the problems of Pilegesh Begeva, which was clearly the major rift within Am Yisrael, this is our most notorious civil war, right? I'm going to say Pilegesh Begeva puts Kaplan to shame, and Baruch Hashem, and that we have in Ghana so far, but now Shaul HaMelech fixes that through the story. So with all the negativity, wait a second, but he didn't go and fight against the Plishtim. We have, if you take a look on page 3, again, the various parallels over here, again, recognizing that here Shaul does not only speak against Ammon, but then we also spoke about the people of the Bnei Blial who appear in both stories as well. And therefore, on page 4, when you look at the 2 bechinot, if you remember this methodology of 2 bechinot that we didn't get to, then we're going to see, wait a second, we can look at the negative perspective. So let's just remember the negative perspective that began already in Perek Chet, with the people requesting for a king. Shmuel Hanavi phrasing it as a rejection of Hashem. Again, in Parak Yud, choosing Shaul by a lottery. Again, and this Shaul's appearance or lack of appearance. And then again, we have the results of the war. Again, of only after the war against Ammon, only now will there be the acceptance of Shaul as king by all of Am Yisrael. The positive perspective, though, is that Hashem approved of the king. And then we certainly saw the signs, the nevuah of Shaul HaMelech. So it seems as if he is definitely the divinely selected king. And obviously this victory of Ammon, and then Shaul's appearance to the people, which is really what we're up to now in Perek Yud Aleph, when we take a look at the result of this war.
I'm missing something. I don't remember. What do you mean by chosen by way of a lottery? It was Shem chosen.
So yes, but it makes it seem, so we discussed this last week, that the lottery is a corroboration that this is Hashem, but to make it seem as if it's coming, okay, first the people, meaning that the people are also approving of him, right? So you're right, I should say a public lottery, right? And not to show the divine, but definitely, again, negative in the sense that one can argue we don't have the people actually saying, yes, he's the one who we want selected, meaning it is somewhat imposed upon them in that regard. At the same time, that could also be seen as positive, right? That, okay, but Hashem wants him selected. Yes, but how about the people? And this is always going to be, again, one of, going to say Shaul's not only insecurities, but really in the end, his Achilles heel, right? Really a bit of a shortcoming for him. So let's take a look at Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Yud Aleph, which is, I believe, where we left off, and even a little bit before. Let's go back to our 300,000 that are going to fight. So we take a look at the Psukim themselves, and to remember that Shaul HaMelech went out with those words, Vayinatfuhu. He went and literally almost word for word what was done to the Pilagesh, her being dismembered and body parts sent throughout Eretz Yisrael. That's exactly what Shaul HaMelech wants to do. Basically remind everyone, oh my gosh, this is Binyamin, this is Yavesh Gilad, we're under threat again, and they are. And literally the people of Yavesh Gilad being threatened by Ammon with their right eyes. Kol yaseh levkaro vayipol pachad Hashem al ha'am vayitzu ki ish echad. The first time now that we have Achdut. They're all going out to fight together. Now this is also significant. Not only the plays on the number 3, 30,000, 300,000, but the fact that we're going to continue to see, even through the time of David HaMelech, that when it comes to the infantry soldiers, generally we find these two countings. One is going to be the counting of all of Yisrael, and then the counting of Yehuda. And the reason for this is because Yehuda not only had its own militia, Yehuda was viewed as the strongest of the warriors. So that's like saying, okay, this amount of foot soldiers, and in the Sayarot, this is the amount that went. So we see that there is a division even under Shaul, and we're going to continue to see this in some of the famous stories. For example, even in the war of David and Goliath, that the people of Yehuda were viewed as the primary warriors. This goes back, by the way, to the times of Yehoshua ben Nun, where you see, even though Bnei Yosef are very initiating, it's really the people of Yehuda who, if you remember from our long discussions of the area, not only the topography, but the history of Hebron, they're the ones who conquer the most difficult part of the country. And therefore they're seen till today, as the strongest of the warriors. Now, not to confuse it with Yavesh Gilad, where they're Giladim, in order to live in the mountains, right? Can everyone picture like people coming from the Golan Heights? We all have a picture of, and this is myself, who politically, I'm not sure why, but right, people would call me a settler living in, the beautiful developed hills of Gush Etzion, but you can't compare even personality-wise to a Giladi, right? Everyone picturing like, the Jeep riders in the Golan Heights, right? So what do we mean by that? The people of Yehuda are strong people, right? They're the ones who go out to the army. In Gilad, you have individuals, right? In order to live there, it kind of breeds a certain personality. So the people of Yavesh Gilad have that personality, but the ones who are going to actually be the warriors, the ones who fight, the soldiers are going to come primarily from Yehuda, as you see here. Obviously, the ones with the greatest, we'll say, and even you could argue if all 12 tribes are fighting, again, counting Manasseh and Ephraim as separate, then and each tribe has a little less than 30,000, right? Meaning basically 11 tribes would come out to 300,000. Vayamru, and Yehuda alone has 30,000. Vayamru lamalachim habaim kol tamrun leish yavesh galad machar tialachem teshuah. Tell them that tomorrow you're already going to have teshuah. Again, these words also, just look at your review sheets on page 3. Again, these words also by the story of Pilagish Begivah. Again, it was machar. One day they went out to war, and then again they go out to war. Don't worry, by tomorrow there will be Shu'ah Kachom Hashemesh, midday. Oh, this is basically the representatives of the Chel that went with Shaul, right? Basically, thank you for asking. And obviously, they're thrilled to hear this news. So they go out almost with a very poor mindset. Basically, they're happy, knowing that they're going to have the support of the rest of Am Yisrael. Obviously, a tikkun also for the Civil War and the aftermath of Melchemet Binyamin. But how do they present it to Ammon? Okay, tomorrow you can do whatever you want, right? Deep down, what are they thinking? Wait till you see what's going to happen to you. Again, we're going to have the support of the entire people. So let's take a look and finish the narrative, and then we're going to revisit from, again, before we continue with chapter 12, from a little bit of a prophetic message. Again, trying to put this in the context, again, of the entire Hamlacha, right? Revisiting this whole scene, because we're going to prove that Parak Yud Bet, there's another Hamlacha. So we have to see why tell the story here. How does this literally illustrate the point, the religious messages that we're supposed to learn, juxtaposed to his, you can call it his second inauguration. Again, the first inauguration being just with Shmuel, and now second inauguration in front of the whole people. And then we're going to see a third inauguration, which is in front of the people again, but in a different location and done in a very different manner. So we're going to finish this war by Himi Macharat, the same words again by Melchemet Binyamin, Vayasem Shaul et ha'am, Shlosha Rashim. He divides the army into 3 different platoons. Vayavo b'toch ha'machaneh b'shmoret haboker. And he divides them up. Tell me, what does this remind you of? Dividing up the people into 3 separate platoons and then having an ambush on them. Gidon. This is a Gidon story. And by the way, it's employed in the Israeli military till today. It's called the Gidon strategy. Again, to divide them into 3. Again, this was done, by the way. One of our son soldiers told us that they did this on one of the villages in Lebanon. They went in 3 different Gedudim and the Gidon. They said they did the Gidon strategy, and very exciting. Vayaku et Amon at Chom Hayom. Now, by the way, why is this interesting? An ambush kachom hayom, because even by Gidon it was at night. Coming in the middle of the day shows greater bravado, right? Greater confidence. I don't have to scare you. And I'm coming. Everything is done. It's starting early in the morning, meaning wake them up. And now they're going to fight. No one was found 2 together. Now this has a double connotation. What does it mean? No one was found shnayim yachad. That everyone is scattered. They're so scared that they scattered, and obviously very, very vulnerable. The other is that it's significant to keep in mind that when generally the primary method of war would be parashim, right? Horse riders. When there are parashim, there are 2, right? I'm picturing, the motorcycles of today, one, but basically that was what a parash was. That one would be the rider of a chariot, and the other, the warrior, the passenger, who he's going to be the one fighting. So when it means literally no 2 were together, what does that mean? They dismembered all those parashim, right? Which is your major threat, right? Because that means that someone is free to fight and from a higher, right? A higher advantage, and obviously not having to worry about the speed of going through. So now they don't have to worry about that if there aren't 2 together. Vayomru ha'am el Shmuel, mi ha'omer Shaul yimloch aleinu. Who were the ones who said, mazeh? Remember the Bnei Belial? Who are those ones, again, who cast out just because he didn't step up to the podium at the right time? Again, who are the ones who were so negative? Now, what's interesting is that if there are people who know that there was a significant population who said, Miuzet, right? What does that tell you about those Bnei Belial, which we discussed last time? Shmuel put out of order. right? He basically put it at the end of the scene. After Shaul goes home, then Shmuel revisited, oh, by the way, you should know at the time of coronation, there were people who were saying, oh, no, this is really the man. It's almost as if Shmuel Hanavi was deliberating whether or not to put that pasuk in. And when did he decide to include that pasuk? When Shaul went home. Again, when Shaul went home, and basically that was the greatest disappointment. So that gave greater voice to what they had heard before. And obviously, yes, just as Sherry said, also in order for us to understand this, which means that was it really just a quiet voice of a small minority? Our sense is that if everyone knew about this, then there was a significant group that were casting doubt, that was casting doubt on Shaul's coronation. Again, you said it. Excellent. Mitsuyan, not me. That's right. And that's exactly it. They said, they are technically, by the way, they have reason to say that they should be put to death. Why? What would they be called? Mori b'malchud. Excellent. Vayomer Shaul.
You're standing on the.
Kol hakavod. That's
exactly
it.
it.
Exactly. Meaning, who remembers?
Here we go again.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Do you remember? I have the chills, right? I'm looking at my skin because I'm feeling the chills as we go back to that story. Do you remember? Once they only post facto, once they wiped out Jacob and Yemen, they said, oh my gosh, Peretz Hashem, how could you have let this happen? That an entire tribe was wiped out. How are we going to solve the problem? Let's kill more people, right? Do you remember this? Let's kill the people of Yavesh Gilad. Now that Shaul basically protected the people of Yavesh Gilad. Wait a second, all those then that wanted to, so to speak, get rid of Shaul, what should we do now? How are we going to solve? Let's get rid of them. And we went, oh my, when is the cycle ever going to end? Right? Everyone see how this could have turned into another civil war. And Atara's thinking to herself, this is what she has to write about. Again, Atara's thinking, oh my, this can turn into another civil war. Right? Who said this about, okay, fill in the blank, right? Bibi, Galant, whatever. Okay, again, that basically it's going to be an endless cycle unless we say, no, this is the government, this is the way it is, but we're not going to start killing. We're not going to start protesting every time there's something we don't like. Beautifully said. And Vayomer Shaul lo yumat ish bayom hazeh. Now, what could it have said? Here's where it's so clear that Shmuel added that pasuk of Vahi Shaul kemacharish. What could have happened? It could have said Vahi Shaul kemacharish. Everyone see that? And what does it mean? Okay, there are two factions. Last time he was quiet, and when people said, oh, who is this man who's going to be king? This time he could have been quiet and said, okay, it's going to die down. Okay, let's kill them. Blah, blah, blah. But he realizes, no, just like there, why was he quiet? He didn't want a whole protest to start. So to here, he's not quiet because he doesn't want them to kill, and he doesn't want contention. At the same time, he could have nipped it in the bud. Everyone see this over there, actually not by being silent, but by saying something. So that's why we saw the two different approaches in Gemara Yoma and in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. Do you remember from last week?
Now he's more of an impressive
Now,
character.
Yafeh, which tells us when does he, thank you, when is he silent? When he's insecure.
Right.
When does he stand up? In Macharish Tacharishi Beitazot, that's exactly it. When he's more confident. Now we're going to see this, that it seems video.
And he's saying the right response. It looks all because, and he appreciates Hashem saving him. So maybe
Exactly.
this was the sign from Hashem
So
that he needed
Beautiful.
to say that he really should be king because they had success in the war.
excellent. So notice how we're analyzing this now as an expression of his confidence, right? His confidence in himself. Now, please remember this, because I would love to say that I could also distinguish his silence from his standing up, not only as an expression of his confidence, but maybe because now there's the threat that they're going to kill people. Maybe Shaul stands up when he realizes it can lead to death, meaning why was he silent? They're bothered by me, I can let that go, right? And that was the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, wow, Shaul is so wonderful that he knows how to let things go, and it doesn't bother his ego. And Vahi Kemacharish, he hears it, but He makes himself as if he's deaf,
It's like
right? That's a
people
wonderful
stand up,
midah.
People are quiet and they suddenly step up to the plate when they really have to.
Beautiful. So he knows that he doesn't have to step up to the plate then. And we can see it as positive. Do you remember? We said we could see it as positive, even though I hope I didn't, I would say, push you a little too much there with regard to the word cheresh there seems to be viewed as negative. But here, definitely, I could say the line is death. But what we're going to see is that Shaul is very inconsistent. It's not clear, right? I'd love to say ego. I'd love to say, so we're going to have to look. I just would like you to be sensitive to this. Again, for the future, when is he silent and when does he stand up? And tell me, is there any common denominator? Because we have theories now where we're going to have to see his behavior and see what it's reflective of. Amanda.
Maybe I'm being too negative about Shaul. Just speak loudly, it could be things like.
Maybe I'm
Amanda's
being too
afraid
negative
she's being
about
too
Shaul.
negative about Shaul.
But I feel like he could have been stronger also. He says, Lo yumat ish bayom hazeh. Ki hayom asa Hashem shua b'Yisrael. Very nice, like today is a happy day, so we're not gonna
Kill
mar it by killing people. He didn't stand up and say, like, what are you thinking? Don't you remember where this led? This is insanity. No one is going to kill anyone. No Jew is going to kill any Jew at all, ever, on any day.
Beautiful, right? Meaning he could have
Like,
taken
that's very
advantage to give them
reflective.
greater musr, right? That's what's
Made a
bothering
speech,
Amanda.
you know.
Even though maybe this is the perfect response for now. Why? Notice what he says. Lo yamat ish bayom hazeh ki hayom asa Hashem shua b'Yisrael. What is Shaul addressing? What does he realize when people say, tznu anashim unimitem? He says, don't kill them today, right? Meaning he leaves it open, almost like Reuben and the pit, right? Meaning leaves it open. But what does he realize as an excellent leader? Let's try to see the positive. Just as there were people who a few days ago were mocking him, and now he has such a great support system. What does he recognize about the populist vote, their sentiments? They're very capricious. That's exactly it. That it can change from one moment to the next. So he says, as long as you don't kill them today, because what does he know? Tomorrow they'll forget about this. That's exactly it. So that's, Amanda, I'm so happy you said your side, right? Everyone see that he doesn't take advantage. He could have given them a much stronger message and he didn't. And we're going to see that, does David know how to take advantage of these special events and messages that he can deliver? Yes. So it's almost, Amanda says, it's a missed opportunity. That's one way of looking at it. But remember, I warned you that we're going to employ shtei bechinot. And I could argue exactly the opposite and say he's a phenomenal leader because he understands the nature of the people and he knows how capricious they are. Okay, that being the case, now note another positive of Shaul. What does he say? Why shouldn't anyone die today? So Amanda, again, is very upset because you shouldn't be killing people and going on a rampage and killing people. At the same time, Ki hayom asa Hashem shua b'Yisrael. What does he want to say? It's not about me. It's about, who do you think liked this response? Chol hakavod, yafeh ma'od. That's exactly, wow, he gets it. He sees it. He could not have done this without God. And he's basically telling them, no, it's not even about me. This is a further expression of his positive humility. He could have said, you know what, you're right, we should kill them. Because how could they have said something so negative about me? Look what a great warrior I am. He doesn't make it about him at all. He makes it about Hashem. It's okay. I understand what they were saying. You know what? I'm not always going to be that great leader. But today you saw Hashem's victory. And therefore, it definitely should not be marred by that. Now, before we go on to Perek Yud Bet, Vayomer Shmuel Kol Yisrael, Hinei Shamati B'Kolchem L'Chol Asher Amartem Li, Ve'Emloch Aleichem Melech. Notice the exposition of the chapter, Perek Yud Bet Pasuk Aleph. Oh, I didn't even finish. Oh my, the last two psukim, thank you. You're going to see we're going to revisit all this through the last two psukim, thank you. Because Perek Yud Bet begins with, Toda, I know I'm fine, but yes. But Perek Yud Bet begins with what sounds like, okay, let's appoint a king, take 3, right? Everyone see this? He's said this pasuk so many times. Let's go back to pasuk Yudal Sifra. Vayomer Shmuel el ha'am. Luchu, V'nelcha hagilgal u'nechadei sham hamlucha. At first glance, it seems that the reason Shmuel says, let's redo the coronation scene is because,
You messed up the first.
excellent, meaning the first time wasn't great. The first time there were dissenting views. Now that you proved yourself, Shaul, now, nechadesh. Can we do it again? Right? Coronation day, take 3, but take 2 for the national level. Okay, vayachu kol ha'am hagilgal, vayamlichu sham et Shaul lefnei Hashem bagilgal, vayizbuchu sham zvachim shlamim lefnei Hashem, vayismach sham Shaul v'chol anshe Yisrael ad ma'od. Wow, now everyone is happy.
No dissenting voices.
No dissenting voices. But wait a second. Perek Yudbet Pasuk Aleph. Vayomer Shmuel Kol Yisrael Hinei Shamati B'Kochem L'Chol Shamartem Livam L'Chalechem Melech V'Ata Hinei HaMelech Mitzalech L'Fnechem Ani Zakanti V'Shafti Ubanai Hinami Tam V'Ani Hitalachti L'Fnechem Mineurai. Okay, now that you're all happy with the king, I just want you to know that I really could have been a good leader, and shame on you for dismissing me. And I just want you to know that I never took advantage of my position of leadership. It could be the king may. And now he goes back and basically revisits again Mishpat Hamlucha and the history of Am Yisrael for a second time, right? But basically it's a third time. I don't just mean a third coronation, but he did this also when they first requested a king. Do you remember the first Mishpat Hamlucha? So what's going on over here? This is why, in order to properly appreciate the contrast, and we're going to go back to note certain things that maybe we weren't as sensitive to with regard to the second mamlacha. So we already mentioned the significance of going to mitzvah. Let me just remember this for a moment. Wait a second. What are the locations now of all the coronations of Shmuel? Where was his first coronation? With Shmuel? Ramatayim Tofim, Shmuel's hometown. Where was his second coronation? Now just remember that he had 3 signs getting ready for the second coronation. We know the second coronation is Mitzvah, and the third is now Gilgal. But on the way to Mitzvah, he also had to go to Beit El. Remember, he went to Beit Elohim, and that's where he was given Kikarot Lechem. Wait a second.
These are the places that Shmuel went.
Beautiful, right? Did I mention this already last
Yeah.
week? Okay,
No,
sorry
not
about that.
last week, but you've mentioned
But in the
before.
past,
Yeah.
Mitsuyan, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yafe. So notice that, do you remember the theme that we discussed in Elul of the crash course of Shmuel educating Shaul in his own path of education? So he received Nevuah. Again, now we see, oh my, even the coronations are where? At the Shmuel locations, right? They're not just, okay, yes, it just so happens to be that these are also the areas of Yemen. And part of the reason is that Shmuel really believes, and he's right, that at the same place of human leadership is where we're ultimately going to find divine leadership. So once the Mishkan in Shiloh was destroyed, Shmuel's been in search of the Shekhinah. Which mountains of, and Binyamin is the Shekhinah going to rest in? And this is going to be extremely significant because next thing we know, where is the Mishkan? Where's the Kohen Gadol? You're just going to see this like out of the blue. It's in a place called Nov. Where is Nov? Even up today, it's an Arab village directly across from Tel El Ful, directly across from Givat Shaul. Where does Shmuel end up establishing the primary national Mizbeach? Literally in Shaul HaMelech's front yard. Everyone see that? Why? Because this is where the human king is, just like Yoshua hails from Ephraim. And as a matter of fact, just a small tangent over here. My husband was mentioning on Shabbos that there was an entire evangelical and also a big tefillah in the Shomron for Hashavat HaChatufim and the Pturim and a few of these tefillot. And where were they all? They were all in Shiloh. And my husband said to me, he said, Shani, aren't you happy to see, the revival of Shiloh and that so many people are coming to Shiloh? Because I love Shiloh. And I said, I know where you're going with this. Yes, but I'm not so happy because really, where should they all be going? To Yerushalayim. Meaning we don't want, we're past Shiloh. There isn't Kedusha in Shiloh anymore. But until that point, until we have Hamakom Asher Yibchar Hashem, everyone's trying their best to figure out where does the Shekhinah want to rest? Where's the best place for people to come to recognize, literally Hamakom Asher Yibchar Hashem, to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu's supremacy as king over the world? Well, it helps if this is the place where people recognize human leadership. So the same hills of Ephraim, where Yehoshua hails from, is where he'll build Shiloh. So Shmuel is looking. Where's it going to come from? Maybe Ramatayim Sofim. Maybe I should establish the Mizbeach in Mitzpeh, maybe in Beit El, maybe in Gilgal. In the end, it makes so much sense. Where's Givat Shaul? For those who've been, it's north of Yerushalayim, but basically it's right in between, right? Meaning Mitzpeh is to the west, Beit El is to the north, and Gilgal is to the east, and Givat Shaul is literally right in between the Shuafat, which is remarkable because when you're standing there, you literally are equidistant. It's called the Tatzpit Shoshana, right? You can take a 360 and here's Gilgal, here's Beit El, here's Mitzpeh. Isn't that phenomenal? So Nov is right there.
Unbelievable. And it was like, it's like they have, the Arabs are living in the
Mamash,
beautiful part.
the most beautiful part of Sheva Binyamin. I know. One day, Amar, don't worry. Gana Be'ezrat Hashem. Peskat Se'ev is pretty close, but Anna, well, they're surrounded. Mamash. Nov is directly to the southeast of Peskat Se'ev. So with this in mind, we understand why he not only is going to bring them now to Gilgal, but now we understand all the selected places and ultimately where he's going to establish the Mizbeach. In addition, and notice that something different is going to happen when we spoke about the coronation last week. Can everyone look back at the Psukim and tell me, how is it held? How did he divide the people? What type of coronation was it? How were people standing? Just to get a sense of the dynamic. Back to even the lotteries. How were people literally standing? How do you picture it?
Everyone was tribe in their tribe.
Kol hakavod, tribe, and even mishpachotav, per family. How are they standing now? As one,
Probably
right?
everyone's
It's very
exhausted, and
different.
they're all just like leaning on each other.
Beautiful.
Like,
Yeah, she has a whole picture in her. Yeah, but the primary difference that Shmuel wants to show is, wow, look at this. Even the development of the coronation is going to be, no, we're no longer, I don't want to see yourselves as families, not even as tribes. Again, this time, you're mamash, ishachad b'lev echad, right? A beautiful idea behind this coronation. And we're going to see how this is going to set the scene clearly for David as well. Which then brings us back to why did Shmuel in the coronation in Mitzpeh, why then divide the people according to Mishpachot? So one can argue that he's trying to show the transition from Shvatim to nation. Okay, that could be. The other this was how he ran the lottery, right? Basically trying to build up Shevet Binyamin. So that was very significant. But then we also saw that very strange verb that I wanted to revisit before we get to the numbers. Again, the verb of loched. Remember that, which we said is obviously bringing us back to Pilegesh Begivah. But even more than that, right? The idea, you can imagine the people's shock. I can't believe it. The first king is coming from Binyamin, and not from who are our regular suspects? Yehuda, and second, Yosef, Kol HaKavod. Again, Ephraim, Menashe, again, those are the natural leaders that we definitely have seen, not only, by the way, not only from the time of Yaakov and his sons, but obviously through Tkufat HaShoftim. Right? Remember, it went from Yehuda through Binyamin and then stayed a while in Ephraim and Menashe before it reached the other tribes as well. But Dafka Shevet Binyamin, which we said is the youngest, is even worse because, again, of the story of Pilegesh Begivah, which is clearly still in the people's consciousness. So let's go back even to the Goral that I said we were going to revisit in terms of the Yichus. So notice that now we have all the names of the families, which is completely absent from this next coronation. Who are the families? We have Mishpachat HaMatri, right? Mishpachat HaMatri, and then obviously Shaul ben Kish, which is interesting because we never find that Shaul is associated with this Matri family, except for this chapter over here. So I'm turning back now. So sorry, back to Perek Yud, to the previous one, to Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Everyone see Batalachet Mishpachat HaMatri. So last week I just explained it very quickly. Yes, we have to get to, again, just like Achan, we start with the big family clan, the tribe, then the family clan, and then the individual family. But it's interesting that the Matri family is only mentioned here. Again, and now we have, as we said, even a slightly bigger surprise, and that's going to be not only the surprise of Shaul ben Kish, but of Shaul not even being there. So firstly, the Matri family, and which is interesting, is coming to tell us that yes, even this family that you never heard about, again, similar to Binyamin, we're going to raise the entire family. Also from a political perspective, we're going to see this coming up by David as well, the broader family clan. It's important to know who they are, right? Because everyone benefits obviously by having your cousin serve as king. And there are certain, many Parshanim explain that it's important to know all debts are going to be canceled, right? Basically, the entire mishpacha, the big family clan, benefits as well. But Shaul isn't even there. Sorry, in Devrei Yamim, he is mentioned. Yes. So what's interesting is that, as we said, Shaul, and we analyzed this last week, either based on his humility or based on his insecurities, again, is not going to accept this position. He's been called up as the very first king, and clearly he doesn't want this position. When they finally do take him out from the kilim, and notice Vayilakach, I can imagine that conversation. Shaul, everyone's waiting for you, and what does Shaul say? How do I know that they had to literally force him, right? He made himself hidden, as we said, playing hide and seek, and now they have to take him out. No, yes, no, and then he comes out, and can you imagine this moment for him? Everyone is staring at him, especially he can't hide. And that's when Shmuel just announces basically one pasuk. And that's why it's important for us to compare and contrast with this third coronation that we're about to see. Vayomer Shmuel kol ha'am hare'item asher b'harbo Hashem ke'en kamo b'chol ha'am vayariu kol ha'am vayamru yechi hamelech. On one hand, when the people finally see the king, I can imagine their applause. Why are they so excited? Great, finally, we waited for this moment for so long. And we've waited basically nearly 400 years since we came to Eretz Yisrael from the time of Yoshua ben Nun. We finally have a king who is going to, remember what's their anticipation? What's the king going to do? Solve all of our military problems. Here's exactly. So on one hand, he's going to go out. We finally have a king who's going to go out and fight our wars. And that's exactly the irony. And then who ends up being this king? Someone who apparently doesn't want to go out and fight wars, right? So that's going to be the dichotomy over here. He's hiding among the weapons. So again, that's the Nechbal Hakilim, and trying again to get Shaul to recognize this task of leadership. And also Shmuel is trying to have the people recognize that Shaul is the perfect one. So that's interesting. That's going to be very hard. How do you show that this is the perfect king? Because we already know that Shmuel thinks that he's the perfect king. How do you, when he doesn't show up, right? And when he doesn't win a war, which is why now we understand. Shmuel understands that now do the people see him as the perfect king? Why? What has he done? He's now has won a war, and therefore very, very difficult, right? It's difficult to elect someone to the House of Representatives without them showing any help, any interest, any accomplishments, again, for sure. And again, to be able to understand this a little more. And that's why the Bnei Belial pasuk is so important. That what were we really expecting? And we already read the perek, but how would it have ended nicely? What would have been a nice ending? Yechi HaMelech is nice, no? No. What more should there have been now that you know the beginning of Perek Yud Bet?
Because some of them could have been really worried.
Yafeh Ma'od, Nachon. So what would have been? Vayariu kol ha'am, keep going. And okay, I think still better had the call for war come from the king. Oh, Lot, Shlamim, beautiful. Everyone see that? Like, wait a second. Where is your thanksgiving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he now gave you a king, right? Wouldn't we have expected? And the reason I'm only mentioning this now is because I turned to Parak Yud Bet, and sure enough, what do they do this time? They recognize, what do you know? This is from Hashem. Again, this time you have Vayizbachuz Vachim Shlamim Lifnei Hashem. Why wasn't that earlier? So now you understand why wasn't that earlier?
Because he was hiding with it.
Because he was hiding, meaning who? That's exactly. They really didn't feel it. They didn't feel that this. So even though last week, excellent. Even though last week we discussed that this is for the people. Yes, but it was for the people to recognize the Goral. It was for the people to recognize that it was coming from Hashem. Did they really appreciate that it was coming from Hashem? No. Who changed that? Shaul himself, by saying, this war came from Hashem. We thought it was about you, Shaul. It's really from Hashem. Great, let's give Hashem.
I was very sorry for Shaul.
Excellent.
I don't know cups could talk. Even this,
You're supposed to.
the taking the bakar and sending it
fair.
out to all over. That in itself was a show, going back to your history and showing how you've got to relate to that is also a tikva for the future.
Nachon. That's exactly
kind
it.
of a tikkun, so.
And it's trying to show you as well, that's right, meaning he recognized that he has to change something, both on a national level, but also personally, right? So everyone see that the hamlacha, the first hamlacha of just a Perek Yud Aleph that we just learned last time, sorry, a Perek Yud, that first hamlacha at the end of Perek Yud was really a failure, right? Meaning an absolute, from everyone's perspective, Shmuel doesn't come out looking good, Shaul doesn't come out looking good, and Hashem doesn't come out looking good, and the people, thank you, don't come out looking good either. Right? It's on every single level, and now that's why Shmuel says, okay, can we redo this? Now, why then even why put the first hamlacha in Sefer Shmuel? So remember, this isn't about historical, this is about religious messaging, and we said today we're going to focus on religious messaging. So Amanda said we need to know. What do we need to know?
You need to know the context of Shaul's reign.
Excellent.
You can't just pretend that everything was good from the beginning.
Beautiful. Back to
Especially
Shtei Bechinot.
Okay, we're not meant to know how it ended, but especially since how it ended, we're not.
Excellent. Just to see literally the Shtei Bechinot. You're going to hear, excellent. Meaning you're going to hear a wonderful coronation now, but you need the other side. You need to know that Shaul is great, but he has many shortcomings.
It's also good from a historical perspective because people can know for future sometimes what it looks like at the beginning isn't really the way it's
Beautiful, excellent. Everyone sees such a strong religious message. If at first you don't succeed, try again. That's right. Meaning not just try again on a personal level, try again on a national level. L'chemet Yom Ha'atzmaut, yay, but left a lot to be unfinished. Hopefully, what we learned this time. I'm with you. So again, definitely this idea over here. Now, and also a little bit more of the localized family shevet level versus the national level that I wanted to speak about over here. But also understanding anvatanuto shel Shaul. If I would ask you a little bit of the expressions of Shaul's humility, don't distinguish in your mind now, positive or negative. Can anyone tell me where did we first see this? His humility, his anivut, because we're going to see something very interesting. When he asked the Nar, beautiful. Next. When Shmuel publicly gives him honor, remember at the big Su'udah? And also he said, no, why are you giving me this? Excellent. Then when he comes back, one of the simanim with simanim, or I should say at the very end, where else do you see his humility? His uncle asks him. Doesn't say anything. Next, Nechbal Hakilim, and last, Vahikim Macharish. Right, so just in terms of his anivut, could you see all of those as positive in context? Amanda's having a hard time, but yes, that's what we've been trying to do. Can you see them also as, again, you can see them as positive, but you can also see them as negative. Mitsuyan, so please keep this in mind. And in addition now to, as we said, I just want to go back for a minute to this yichus of Mishpachat HaMatri versus the entire nation. So we said this is going to be important, not only because of the entire family benefiting from this, but let's compare it for a second. So I'm going to have you flip around a little. I hope everyone's ready for this. Again, to Shaul's yichus before we go on. because we're going to see and compare it obviously to the way that David is going to be coronated, because we are going to, throughout our learning, continuously make these contrasts. Take a look at Shmuel Aleph, Perek Tet, Pasuk Aleph. All we knew about Shaul is that he's Ben Kish, right? That's all we were told. Now, Perek Yud, Sukim Chaf Aleph. Now we hear, wait a second, he's from Shevat Binyamin, Mishpachat Hamatri, and from the family of Kish. Now, can everyone fast forward to Perek Yud Dalid, Sukim Nun and Nun Aleph, long chapter. There we hear the Kish Avi Shaul, the Ner Avi Avner ben Aviel. Now we hear a little bit more about him. We even hear about his uncle and his first cousin, right? His uncle's name is Ner. So what's Ner's son's name? Abner, meaning Kish. Kish and again, Kish Avi Shaul, the Ner Avi Avner were both sons of Aviel, right? So Kish and Ner are brothers, and Abner and Shaul. Okay, now, as Rashi mentioned, can everyone open up to Divrei Hayamim Aleph, Perek Chet Pasuk Lamed Gimel? You can have
Divrei Aleph, Perek.
Perek Chet Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Melissa's going to read for everyone.
Okay.
Divrei Hayamim Aleph.
Ner holid et Kish, וקיש הוליד את שאול, ושאול הוליד את יהונתן, ואת מלכישוע, ואת אבינדב, ואת אשבעאל.
Eshba'al, right? Who's Ishboshet? Yafe Ma'ot. So again, we had the Kish line. Yafe, any mention of Matri? No, keep going. And now we're in Pasuk, same, that was Parachat Pasuk Lamed Gimel, now Perek Tet. Excellent, Pasuk Lamed Tet. Tet Lamed Tet. Still the very young.
Okay, ונר הוליד את קיש, וקיש הוליד את שאול, ושאול הוליד את יהונתן, ואת מלכישוע, ואת אבינדב, ואת אשבעאל.
Mitsuyan, excellent. Again, and Psukim, sorry, right, that was it. Again, Yafeh, that was the Shoshelet. So now it's very, we basically understand what this line is, right? Shaul ben Kish, Kish's father is Ner, even though here it says, again, Aviel, right? So it seems that Ner and Aviel is the grandfather, also called Yiel. And he then is going to be, now I look back at the Binyamin line, and I see he is the son of Tzror, who's the son of Bechorat, who's the son of Afiach, from Mishpachat Hamatri. So, wow, now we understand this a little more, again, from comparing all of these shulshalot, but still, we don't know why this is so significant. If we're already going to Mishpachat Hamatri, we may as well have gone to, and his father was Binyamin. So the line, his family clan, goes all the way back to Matri.
Matri is.
Isn't that interesting?
Is Binyamin's.
Is Binyamin's son. So why is that strange? Usually you're called, now in the time of the Midbar, they're called Mishpachat HaChetzroni from the sons, but it's now 400 years later, right? I would call it the family of Kish, the family of Ner, right? The Beit Av, but now Mishpachat HaMatri. So what's interesting is that you get a sense, why would it still be called the family clan of Matri? We address this a little, but they're the only ones left. That's exactly it. The only ones left. Meaning you go back to the line when that's the only line, right? So by pointing out that he's from Mishpachat HaMatri, what is Shmuel basically telling everyone?
Everybody else.
You've killed everybody else, which also means, by the way, if they're the only ones left, and they really were only a couple of hundreds left, then they're also living in close proximity one to the other. I can imagine this family clan, this very tight-knit clan, right? They're all, all the cousins living, I'm sure, in a very, very close-knit manner. And that's why when we get to, and please remember this, that this is going to be Shaul ben Kish. It's enough to say that because everyone knows Shaul ben Kish, if there really aren't so many, it's just Mishpachat HaMatri. Is that phenomenal? We don't hear about, right? Anyone else? Now, that also is going to make sense. Please remember this when we get to the story of Shaul and the Givonim, because Givon is right next to Shuafat. right? Basically is right next to this area. So we're going to have to speak about this as well. Again, so it seems as if Shaul's whole family is living in the same area for hundreds of years. They're the only ones who aren't wiped out. Again, they basically are the only ones that continue. But it does seem that, again, they're all living more or less in this area of Givon and Nov, which is also, again, we know of a place today, and this is interesting, called Chorbat al-Matri, that many say is where the family of Shaul originally was. That's where their Nachala was, which is a little farther west, which is Har Adar of today. So definitely farther west. And they found interesting Nimsaim over there. So basically, Aviel, Shaul's great-grandfather, was called in Divrei Yamim Yi'iel. It seems that maybe he's the one who moved from, probably at the time of Pilagish Begivah, moved from the area of Haradar, moved to the area of Givon. So that's just an interesting geographic sense over here. And we already know that where is Kish living? Kish is living in the area of Givat Shaul, and we'll speak a little bit more about the geographic significance over here, but the whole point is not only to build up the disunity that existed, but as we said, also the disappointments. And therefore, we're going to get to him. He's Ishboshet. Okay, I can't help it. Okay, can I just mention this now, but you'll all remember it, so I don't have to say it again in a few prakim. Ish Baal is Ishboshet, right? What does Ishboshet mean? I'm embarrassed, right? The man of embarrassment. Why in Tanakh will he be called Ishboshet? Because Shaul really named him Ish Baal, the man of Baal. You're supposed to be bothered by this because the king names his son after Avodah Zarah. Yes. Why did he name his son after Avodah Zarah? Because even if you believe in Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, you want to hedge your bets a little and believe that Baal, the ancient Canaanite god who's in charge of the rains in the land of Israel, how do you know that? So we're going to continue to see this. His daughter has Trefim. His son Yonatan does all these magical tricks with arrows, and he's the best king. That's the point. That's exactly the point. In other words, but this should not surprise you because who remembers how did we leave Sefer Shmuel? How do we leave Sefer Shoftim? With tremendous amount of Avodah Zarah, right? Isha Yashar Beinad Yasem. Micha thinks that he's taking the money that he stole from his mother and he's going to dedicate it to God. And what does he create? Avodah Zarah. It's completely distorted.
But maybe it's Shmuel's fault.
Now Shmuel starts the change. Now we've been focusing so much on Shmuel, the person. And the question is, what's really going on with the people? Is he making a significant change? Yes, but it's gradual. So we now have the
He's
king.
got responsibility over Shaul, so he should.
Which is why he's also a little disappointed. This is the best guy. Why is he the best? He's the most religious. And he recognizes God. He's very
what
firm.
he should be calling him.
So excellent. So Shmuel can't call him Ish Baal in Tanakh. He can't. The author of Divrei Hayamim will call him Ish Baal, but not Shmuel. What is Shmuel going to call him? Ishboshet. Exactly. That's a very strong message. Ishboshet. But here's where it gets so exciting, because I remember exactly where I was when I heard this. That you remember Yisrael Finkelstein and Garfinkel were doing, Yisrael Finkelstein and Yisrael Garfinkel were doing finally a joint project at Khirbet Kayafa, going like that because it's right over here, mamash, a 10-minute drive. And did we ever go together?
No.
Not this group? We
I don't
didn't.
think
How
we've
could we
been
have
to-
not have been there together?
Because there's
Okay,
too many places
too many places to
to go.
go. Nachon. So again, what's amazing is like Garfinkel and Finkelstein have a major debate, right? Whether the David monarchy was really a huge monarchy or whether it was really very parochial. So in addition to finding a model of the future Beis HaMikdash, you know this, they also found Tzvidim. So this is one of the cities of David when he was the king of Yehuda, which means that this is after Shaul is killed by the Plishtim, and naturally his only surviving son named Ishboshet is now the king. And eventually, right, he and Avner ben Ner, right, his father's cousin, they don't get along one with the other, and Avner ends up reaching out to David. But in the meantime, there are also tensions between them. Anyway, in Khirbet Kayafa, they found pieces of pottery right over here, right across from Soho or across from Park Britannia. Yes, this was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. That's called recent. And archaeological, I remember I was on my way to the airport.
Yeah, that around here, I don't remember. Something very recent that we found with the accumulation, they found things, some.
Yes, 2 years ago, they found more names that actually appear in the David line and the Shaul line, right? Which tells you that there was more correspondence than we think based on what was here. And they found a whole piece of pottery, and on it was written, Lamelech Ish Baal. Which king was there? Ish Baal. The answer is Ishbosheth. And even, again, that's exactly, people had to pay taxes still to the king.
It was just Shmuel who calls him Ishbosheth, but everybody
Called him Ish Baal. Isn't that
Was Mephibosheth
Isn't it amazing?
was Mephibosheth.
Mephibosheth is Mephibosheth because that's because of his lame. He was lame. So also, meaning he probably wasn't, you wouldn't name your child Mephibosheth, but over time, that's how he became known. But Ishmael stayed Ishmael. So very, very interesting and exciting, and again, and tells us more about the yichus of Shaul. So Shaul is from the family of Matri, originally the city of Matri by Haradar. Again, his grandfather Abiel, who moves to Givon, and Kish, who lives a little north of Givon. So please keep this in mind because there are going to be a lot of tensions between Shaul and the Givonim. So this is a little bit about the background on a family level. And at that family level, we said, is really supposed to set the tone for the people to recognize that they did a disservice to the entire tribe of Binyamin. And lastly, we had the whole idea of the city of Mitzpeh being one of Shmuel's favorite cities, number one. Number two, going back, as we said, to the story of Pilagish Begivah, and for that matter, his previous rebuke of the people asking for a king. Now we're finally ready to move on, recognizing that so much of the stories of Shaul are written, and this is very common, are written in threes. Remember the three signs, now three different mamlachot, three different stages of coronation. So again, let's just quickly remember, the first one was in Ramatayim Tzofim, and just between Shmuel and Shaul, the second one in Mitzpeh, and now the third one in Gilgal, not only as we said, a crash course, but maybe two crash course, like meaning too much and too short of time because it doesn't seem to have worked. But now Shaul is, as we said, now the popular support, and it seems as if everything is going to now start off again, but on a stronger foot. Now, what's interesting is that Shmuel himself incorporates his own personal words. And what do I mean by this? Let's take a look back to Perek Aleph. When Shaul does come out of hiding, what does Shmuel himself say about him? He says to the people, so we discussed a little last week. Why does he say that? Exactly, meaning he has to build him up, especially now. But even more than this, again, we saw that Shmuel, going back to Perek Aleph, already had woven whose personality into his own. Asher sha'alti mehashem sha'ul lahashem. Right? He basically wrote Sefer Shmuel clearly after the scene. Everyone see this? Meaning now we understand he doesn't write it, when he's 10 years old or even when he first wrote Nebuah. He incorporates Shaul into himself. So as much as he's providing Shaul with a crash course in Shmuel style education, he really does believe that Shaul is remarkable. How do I know that? Because he is a Shaul want to be. Everyone see that? He doesn't focus on the name Shmuel, Shama Hashem et Tfilat Ha'ima Shali. Rather, he focuses on Shaul, Shaul Hashem, Shaul Me Hashem, and appears, by the way, back in Perek Aleph, it appears 5 times. And 5 times this idea, and so much so that in Chanas Tfilah, remember she says at the end, Vayarim Kerem Mishicho, right? By Hashem Yitain Ozom Yaakov, Vayarim Kerem Mishicho. And basically saying, okay, even if he wants to say, even if I ended up not being king, I was the one who coronated the kingship. And therefore, so important that Shmuel, who on one hand has to, I'm going to say, walk and chew gum, right? On one hand, he has to say, shame on you for asking for a king. But if you're already asking for a king, then make sure it's going to be a Sha'ul Hashem king, right? Make sure that it's going to be someone who's devoted to God. And this is the background. Because Shaul, he loves Shaul. He thinks Shaul really has the greatest potential.
Even though
So-
he wrote this after.
Yes, and that's why he himself is straddling between Amanda's negative emotions and Dahlia's looking for the good emotions.
You know, you
Right.
can almost imagine a scene when he first meets Shaul. Your name is Shaul.
Your name is-
You know?
But exactly, well, so close to mine, but he didn't write Perek Aleph then.
No, I know
You see that, but
also,
yes.
You know, I've been waiting for the Shaul Hashem.
Exactly, yafe, yafe. But you're supposing that he wrote Perek Aleph before. But I agree with you that the names are somewhat similar, right? Meaning it works out well. The Shmuel
Even
Shaul,
if he didn't write it.
it could have been nachon, yafe ma'od, right? Already even anticipating. Mitsuyan. So now we're going to finally take a look at this ideal Melucha, as we said. So now that they're in a Gilgal, Vayismach Sham Shaul b'chol Anshe Yisrael ad ma'od. It seems even as if last time, I just read the Pasuk Tetra, but now we're in Perek Yud Bet Pasuk Aleph. It seems that last time, do you remember what was the pretense to get everyone to mitzvah? Who remembers?
What was the question?
What was the pretense to get everyone to mitzvah back in Perek Yud Aleph? What did he tell everyone back out? Sorry, Perek Yud Pasuk Yudzayin. Vayatik Shmuel et ha'am el Hashem hamitzveh. Again, how did he invite everyone? Invitations went out, but no, messengers went out saying, come to God. And we said, oh my, it was just like last time. Let's come for a religious seminar. And in the end, which first turned into war, which we said, maybe you want to do the same thing, a religious seminar in new leadership, shame on you for leaving God, right? And now you have this new king, and he was hoping that it would lead to war, which it didn't. But now there was a war. So now, how is he going to get everyone to Gilgal? Now he makes it very clear. Okay, last time he didn't say, let's go and crown a king. Why not? He wanted to give them Musar, right? He wanted it to be a religious experience. This time it's very clear. What's the only goal here? The goal is a positive Melucha, right? He invites everyone. So this time, everything is going to go well. At the same time, he now has to tell them, Perek Yud Pasuk Aleph, Vayomer Shmuel al kol Yisrael hinei shamati b'kolchem l'chol asher amartem li v'amlich alechem melech. And now he says, not shame on you from leaving, from ma'astem et Hashem. Do you remember that time, giving them some musar? Now, basically, he's taking credit, right? Okay, I listened to you and I gave you a king. Not that I think that you were wrong. Why is this an entirely different tone? Basically, he says, now that you see that you like your king, just know that it came from me, right? That I'm responsible. Excellent. This is where you see, by the way, a little bit of his insult. Can everyone look at the pasuk and tell me how do you know he feels a little insulted?
Why is he talking about all of this?
Beautiful. You'll see, because he basically realizes now that they like Shaul, that he's going to be more on the sidelines.
Isn't that a bit?
So he says,
Yeah.
so that's exactly it. Last time it was about how you insulted God. This time, he's going to make it pretty clear that they're also insulting him.
But
He says, I'm old,
wasn't it a bit?
meaning it's
Out of
presumptuous. It's presumptuous to say
A
that
little bit.
a little bit.
And he's
but-
frailty.
Okay, meaning notice that this is how he writes it, right? He
But
is
this
expressing his own.
speech after a very successful coronation. Don't start bringing poor Shmuel, you know.
So that's exactly, it's not going to be poor Shmuel. It's going to be, wow, Shmuel, you really were a great leader. Do you mind if it's, right, did Biden speak yet? About, he didn't,
He said something about that.
right?
He
Meaning, when does
said-
Biden give his farewell speech?
Oh, he kind of didn't.
He did.
When, in January?
Say the word.
He said something right after.
He did say something?
Yeah, he said
Did he say
it'll
something?
try and
What-
work nicely with
Yeah, he
the.
said something like, well,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
nice transition.
Right, he conceded,
Yeah.
even though he didn't have to concede because he didn't run.
Right.
But
No,
he
no,
said,
but yeah, but something.
Beseder, do you see that? Meaning
Oh, this time. Oh.
this time, this,
Yeah.
right now, meaning I didn't
he
hear
was
it.
quite
Something like
nice.
when he was pushed aside for.
Right, no, no.
not
Right,
that. Okay,
exactly. This, because now because he stayed in power still,
right.
right? Do you see that? So now he really has to speak. Or think about any president who is now, when there's a shift in
I
power.
think Biden was quite nice. He sort of said, okay,
That's- yeah.
you've won, let's try
You've
and work
won.
together.
Let's try to
and
work
see-"
out a national, and just know,
Which
don't
isn't
worry,
what
his,
Shmuel says.
kinda, and you'll see, because what else, Biden how does Biden want you to remember him?
I think it's a
As the
nice old
greatest
man.
president.
Thank you, he wants you to remember him.
Won against Trump. That's what's going
Ah,
on.
that's
The greatest
interesting.
president.
That's
Greatest
interesting.
president.
Do you see that? Meaning Shmuel realizes that now who's taking center stage of leadership? It didn't happen before, even though he set the stage, it could have happened, right? And that's exactly what he wants to tell you. The reason the previous coronation didn't work was not because of Shmuel, but was because of, thank you. Now, exactly. Now he realizes this one's going to work because of Shaul. And this is his time to say farewell. Now, is he still going to be in the picture?
Yeah.
Yes, but he's not the central leader. Is Biden still going to be in the picture? Are people going to interview him over the, well, okay. Not as much. Again, was Trump in the picture the past 4 years? Yes.
Not a good way.
At the Seder, meaning when you have different leaders, that again, it's not, even when, oh my, right, meaning Netanyahu has been in the picture, right, meaning the whole time, and everyone's wondering and what does he have to say about this, right? Basically, when you have leaders, even today with millions of people.
People say still ask Omer.
Thank you. That's a great example. Thank you.
Popping up every so often.
Exactly. Thank you. Right. So it makes sense that Shmuel Hanavi is going to, again, especially because he's writing the religious messages, is he going to pop in with his messages? Yes. But what does he want to make very clear now? Who's your primary leader? Who's also responsible? Meaning a lot's going to go on behind the scenes between Shmuel and Shaul, but from the people's perspective, they're going to see the Shaul face, and they're not going to see the Shmuel face as often. And it's important for us to know that as leaders. So yes, he will put that in. Don't worry. So now let's take a look at this farewell speech. Right? It's a coronation, but also farewell.
At one point, does Shmuel realize that his sons won't be in the picture?
Right now. And he says it. He says, notice how he says it. So Judy thinks it's not so subtle. He says, I listened to you and I gave you the king that you requested, which by the way, now they like very much. So here's the king and I'm out of the picture. Anisa Kanti, Visafti, and I'm old. Ubanai hina mitchem. And my sons are with you. What does he want to say? My sons are your age, right? Meaning my sons are with you. Why does he put his sons into the picture? As if to say, you could have. Everyone see this? We know that they're not great, but he wants to say that. He wants to say, okay, I'm more out of the picture because I'm the previous generation and my sons are your peers. Okay, but there seems to be a little bit, they could have continued me, but okay. But I want you to know that I led the way for you. And this is a term that you know from this past week's parsha, that it doesn't just mean that I paved the way politically, militarily. It's a term of, I showed you the religious way. I was such a great Torah teacher. Do you remember the stories actually start with Ushmuel Na'ar, right? When Hannah brings him to the Mishkan. He's already described there as a Na'ar, even though he's 3 years old, which is so remarkable in saying that I literally, my whole life was devoted to Hashem and you, right? Everyone see that? It's not even hinted in the words. It's very explicit. Hineni, he says, now, anubi neged Hashem, beneged mishicho. So now answer me in front of God and in front of his appointee. Here we have that word. He's going to say, the one anointed by God, answer me. Et shor mi lakachti. So this is what's bothering Judy. On one hand, I could read this as, why is he sharing this with us? Okay, I want you to know I was an honest leader. I never said, I never took beyond what I was allowed to take, versus the mishpat hamlucha. What does it mean to have a melech? He can, definitely in times of war, take whatever he wants to take. And Shmuel basically says, number one, I was never really your king. Now you're going to have a king. To a certain degree, he's saying, why weren't you happy with my form of leadership? But everyone see how that's a subtle, he doesn't say that explicitly. He says, answer me. Did I ever do anything corrupt? Did I ever, he says, did I ever take a shore of someone, an ox or a donkey? That mi ashati, did I ever oppress anyone? Et mi ratzotu, umian mi lakachti kofer. Again, did I ever take a bribe from anyone? Valim einaibo vashiv lachem, and then basically return it to you. Meaning, did I ever use public funds, for my hotel stays? Right, basically nothing.
Like that. Nobody accused him of it. Why is he
So thank you. So Atara's asking, why is he saying this? Has anyone accused him?
Sounds like he's got a chip on his chip.
A little chip.
A big,
Thank you.
a
He
big
does.
chip.
What's his big chip? What's his big chip? Exactly. Why did you reject
But
me?
why is he bringing up again? He's ruining the situation.
Because he
He's
wants
ruining
them.
this
Because
coronation.
he's leaving. He's leaving. If anything, it strengthens the coronation, right? This is his farewell speech to them. You're not going to hear speeches of Shmuel to the nation. You'll hear Shmuel talking to Shaul, but not to the nation. This is it. He says
But
goodbye.
can't he say, yeah, it's been really great, and I've done this. Why is he starting bringing it all
Because
back
what's his
again?
religious message? Because you have to ask, what's his religious message? His religious message is someone in power is not allowed to take advantage. The problem is that
Why
a
is he making
king.
it personal? He shouldn't be making it personal. It's got to move
So,
on, Shmuel.
you ready for this? Chazal appreciate that Shmuel is from the descendants of Korach. Remember, Korach accused. Rivka Esther is saying, yes, Korach accused Moshe of being a demagogue. Remember, you're taking everything, political power, religious power, spiritual power. Shmuel, and that's why we read this. This is the Haftorah for Parshat Korach. Isn't that interesting? This is this chapter, the third Hamlacha. As if Shmuel is trying to say, I never did that, right? Meaning neither did Shmuel. He's going to, and neither did Moshe. He's going to compare himself to Moshe. That Moshe, and what's unique about Moshe? Korach wanted a divestment of power, right? Between Kahuna, Malchut, and Nevuah. And basically that's what Sefer Devarim allows for, but it wasn't time yet. Meaning Moshe kept saying, what do you mean? You have everything, Rav Lachem B'nai Levi. Why am I the king and the Navi and my brother is the Kohen? Why am I? Because that's what Hashem wants. Right? At the right time, it will be divested. What is Shmuel going to say right now? And why was I your political and your religious leader like Moshe until now? Because that's what Hashem wanted. And I never, just like Moshe and Korach, and he is from the descendants of Korach, just like Moshe turns to Korach and says, again, did I ever take anything from you? Did I ever abuse my power? And why are you so vehement? So too, Shmuel says it now. So that's how Chazal. That's why I preface it by saying Chazal see it as a tikkun for Korach. And but we don't even within context have to see it as so that could be his chip of who his grandfather was. But it's more a message to the people, just like Moshe's message. What's the message? Why was I your political leader and your religious leader? Not because I was power hungry, but because Hashem wanted me to be both. And guess what? This is a remarkable occasion. Yafeh. This is a remarkable occasion. Why is it a remarkable occasion? The time for Devarim Perek Yud Zayin has finally arrived after 400 years of Jewish history in Eretz Yisrael. The time has finally come when you're going to have a Misrad HaChinuch and a Misrad HaDatot and a Misrad HaChutz and a Melech. Right? The time has come for the divestment of power. And wow, Right. And it wasn't because it was bad beforehand. That's what he wants them to realize. And this very much supports the opinion of the Sforno. Do you remember we learned the Sforno who says that Melucha isn't intrinsically bad? It's not. Are there times where Melucha could be wonderful? Yes. And are there other times in Jewish history where Malchut could be horrible? Yes. Right. And here Shmuel is saying, I want you to look back at my time, not thinking that, oh, we didn't have Melucha then, so it's so horrible. No. Just like Moshe, it wasn't the time yet for Melucha. And therefore, I was very good. It was excellent leadership. You wouldn't have gotten to the stage without me. Now, not in an arrogant fashion. I think that's what's bothering Judy, just in explaining to them his parting religious words. And with this, we're going to end. So let's take a look. And he says exactly this. He says, again, therefore, now I stand neged Hashem beneged Mishicho, against his appointed one. Et shor mi lakachti chamor, mi lakachti et mi ashachti, et mi ratoti mi lakachti kofer, v'alim enibo v'ashib lachem. If so, then I'll return it to you. Vayomru. And it's almost as if he has to go through this. What do you think the people are going to respond? Chas v'shalom, Shmuel. Again, lo ashaktano, you did not oppress us. Lo ratzotenu, you did not literally, again, run after us with harsh things. Lo lakachta miyad ish mu'ma, you didn't take anything from us. Vayomer alehem, a'ed Hashem bachem, ve'ed mishicho hayom hazeh. It's not enough that God be a witness, but the Melech, the Mashiach, meaning Shaul's a witness. Ki lo matatem biyadi mu'uma. Why is this so important? So this is what's bothering Judy. Why is it so important that he says, I want you to know that I never performed any iniquity, never an injustice against you. Is it to make himself look good? No, it's a religious message to tell them that
A king should never.
excellent,
And
beautiful. It's a way of
That's the
looking
one
forward,
who's-
but also a way of looking back and recognizing that I was a good religious leader. I may not have been the political leader that you need right now, but I didn't do anything by Yomer Eid. He says, when you look back at this time period of history, you may look back at the time of the Shoftim. Are you going to look at them as a Rai? Yes. When you look back at my reign as leader, as national leader, how do I want you to look back at it? Exactly. So you're supposed to say, what do you mean? But Shani, we have 12 chapters of his writings here that, how can you not look at it positively? And the answer is because you could look at it as not positively, which is such a message. Excellent.
They just see.
Beautiful. I could look at everything that Shmuel has written as, okay, clearly the goal was, he knows this. You could read this chapter even as the goal was to get to kingship. What does he want you to realize? This is his religious commentary. Did he actually make this speech? Our sense is yes. Again, but with these exact words, I don't know. Again, he wants you to look at the past, literally 12 chapters that he's written and understand that you could not have gotten to this stage without him. And therefore, our next shiur is going to be a very in-depth shiur. I'm just going to give you, it's going to be live, so you can, and I speak very quickly, so you can, and on the video to cover a tremendous amount of information. So you may want to play it back. I realized afterwards that, wow, that was really, and you may want to play on slower speed. Then, but basically, the reason I was going a little slower now is that I really start from, again, basically this pasuk over here, and the Ezrat Hashem, we're going to come back then, knowing that you have learned Perek Yud Bet very much B'iyunim, and then we're going to continue with the Shaul stories in Perek Yud Gimel, with one of the major difficulties of this entire Sefer, which is Ben Shana Shaul B'Macho. What does that mean? He's a year old when he becomes king, Ushtei Shanei Malach al Yisrael, and he rules for 2 years. So we have a 1-year-old ruling until he's 3 years old, right? That's a little strange. Who's much taller. So how do we understand this pasuk? That will be our next shiur, Bezrat Hashem. Have a wonderful 2 weeks. I'm going to miss everyone. Okay, so I give it as.
We did a search of Ella on the Almasor and I couldn't find it.
Demet? You did Shalosh.
I just searched the word Ella and I searched all of them and I couldn't find it till here.
And we also looked up just anything,
Okay, go back to Pilegesh Begiva. You did? See the number.
Okay.
That's 300, and we have.
Here, and the Parachaf, the Civil War. Add them up, that's why, you have to add them up. And how much? 300,000.
Oh, we didn't add.
A little
What did
mathematics.
you say over and over again when you showed him that it was bad because there was no manna?
So that's exactly it, meaning Shmuel writes Sefer Shoftim, recognizing the needs for Malchut. Then what's the point of the first 12 chapters of Sefer Shmuel? He's going to write how he prepared the people for Malchut, which is why he still thinks that they're not 100% ready. But when Shaul comes along, he realizes they are ready.
It's like birds and.
That's why we are going to take a look at this. Shalom. Yes, of course. And I have to answer your questions.